Hi, this is Paul Palmer. Today I'm going to talk about mentoring. Slightly different topic to the ones that I'm used to. Usually I'm focused a bit more on specifically my career, maybe some pharmaceutical, of course, business systems, processes. But mentoring, I think, is an important aspect when you've been in a role or an industry for some time, because you find that people that are just joining the industry or they're early on in the career need some support. It's often hard for them to work out where they want to go next. And if they do know where they want to go, it's quite difficult to decide what's next, what they need to do now. I found in my career that I would say that I got there by not necessarily by choice or direction, but sometimes by default, just because I took whatever opportunities were available. I became a QP because I was specifically wanting to be a QP, but some of the other choices I made along the way were just incidental, just because they were available. I took my degree with my first company because they came to the school and invited me. I took multiple promotions because the opportunity came up and I just decided to apply. When I moved on to my next opportunity, I'd applied for everything. After my first redundancy, I was doing 30 applications a day. I went for every single interview that I got invited for. I went as far north as Inverness, and I went as far south as, I think the furthest south was probably Horsham. I can't think of any further. I don't think there was any. Maybe Bristol's a bit further away from where I was living at the time up in Hull. But anyway, I saw a lot of the country and spent a lot of time driving, even flew on one occasion. But you know what? There wasn't a specific goal. There wasn't a specific expectation of what I was getting. I needed a job. I just doubled my mortgage. I went for everything, every single thing. And I think sometimes that came across in the interviews and sometimes it didn't. I really did want to stay in pharmaceuticals, but if I had to take another job, which actually I did after the second redundancy, I went into digital encoding of credit cards and phone cards and PKI infrastructure, which is the online security systems for ensuring that the data that you use online and transfer between sites is safe and secure. And it was a useful move, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I did it because I got the job. I didn't do it because I was specifically looking for that role. Probably the first one that I really wanted was the trainee QP position. No, actually, no. It was earlier than that. So when I left microbiology, I wanted to be a supervisor, but I applied for every supervisor role I could find inside my company and outside. I wanted to become a manager then. Once I was a supervisor, next step up. So although I was applying for managerial roles, the company decided to split the team that I was in. They split the pharmaceutical and the devices, and I took the pharmaceutical side of the business. Then I think from there it was a bit more limited for a while, and the company decided they wanted me to support a gap that they had noticed in a business during an FDA inspection, and that was for the support of the contracted out services, what we would now call CMO, contract manufacturing organization. I don't remember using that term at the time, but it was a long time ago. Then, of course, I went on to get my QP training. When I got the QP training, after the second year, my goal was to be a QP. And even though at the time there was a 6-month waiting period for the Viva, I'd actually pre-prepared the people that needed to put me on the list before I even finished my course. I had all the form filled in. I knew that I had all the experience, and I just needed the certificate. So about 6-7 months before I took my Viva, it was already booked, and they were just waiting for me to get the confirmation and say, yeah, he's done the course, he's finished the degree, he's done the, no, it was the postgrad, of course, not the degree. They knew, of course, that I was attending it, so the training that I'd achieved during the postgrad was already on file. And I think it helped that I attended every single trainee QP course that they had available. I think that maybe gave them an idea that I wanted to be a QP. The Viva I went straight through. First time, 4 months after I finished the course, I was the first from my cohort for the course that passed. I think I was actually the first one that actually took the Viva even. Then once I became a QP, I wanted to move closer to home. So I applied for every job in the right location because I'd been commuting a long way. I've been commuting, well, it was always at least 2 hours, but I think the longest trip was 8 hours when the Dartford Bridge got closed because of an accident. And I unfortunately was already on the bridge, so I couldn't go back. Since then, I've taken a range of different opportunities as they've come along. The biologics, I think, was probably the biggest change within my career employed. But then when I became a consultant, as a consultant, I made the decision because I'd been thinking about it for ages, and I had the opportunity because I had a payoff from my redundancy. I had redundancy and I had garden leave. They were restructuring. And I went for some life coaching and made the decision this time. Rather than being pushed into it, rather than anybody really making me do it, I made the decision myself. I became a consultant. Now, of course, I'd got all my experience in pharmaceuticals, so I should have been a pharmaceutical consultant. But the first thing I did was learn about sales and became a sales trainer. The next thing I did was learn about business, small business, small to medium really, and how they're managed and how the finances work and how the marketing works. And for a period of time, I was a business advisor. But while I was a business advisor, I used up all my money. I used up maybe not quite all of it, but a proportion of my redundancy payment went on clearing all the debts. It went on signing up for a franchise so that I got a load more training on how to run a business, how to optimize the business processes. And I got approached for a consultancy role for Patheon it was. I had my QP status, of course, and I took a job as a QP. But then it started happening again because the person that I was reporting into resigned. And I took his job. I was offered his job, and yep, why not? So, quality manager for the clinical team, as well as the QP. And the next thing was my wife wanted me home. She was, after a couple of years, she had enough of me working away from home. It was just over a 2-hour commute. It should have been an hour and 40 minutes, but the traffic up that direction, it's just not possible. Maidenhead's always going to have traffic on the way, especially from where I live down on the south coast. So I took an opportunity that was closer to home. I wanted to carry on with the business advice, but it didn't really work out. Taking a full-time job and doing a business consultancy, I was playing at it really, rather than fully committed. And I took on the opportunity to be a QP at Fisher. I enjoyed that one actually because I was advising clients all over the world. I did a shift pattern that meant I was often the one that was advising the US clients, and I got to know them, which when you're in this type of role, it's always interesting. At the same time, I found more jobs. I got other opportunities. As a consultant, you can do more than one job. You can do 2, 3, 4. So a large proportion of the time, I was doing 3 contracts at a time. I think the highest I got to was 6. But I was exhausted. Sure, the money was good. I mean, I got to the point where I could no longer continue as VAT registered on the cash scheme. No, on the flat rate scheme. I earned too much money. So I had to switch over to the cash scheme. Now, I really don't like accounts. So I had to get myself an accountant. I'm not sure if it was at that stage or a bit earlier. Probably a bit earlier that I took the accountant, because I'd already been trading while I was full-time employed, but just on a bit on the side. And then it's gone on from there. One contract, another contract, another contract, always with some overlap. I think the lowest I got to was 2 days a week, because when I was 48, I was thinking about retiring at 50, and I thought, well, what am I waiting for? Just do it now. So I took a permanent 2 days a week job, and it was QP release, and the pay was what I would say was a full-time salary for 2 days a week. Full-time for many people, but not really full-time for a QP, because you can get more money. And unfortunately, my wife was still working. So I had 5 days a week off and 2 days working. And I wanted to do more. It wasn't enough for me. And I was offered a 3 days a week job. And while I was in that job, unfortunately, their circumstances changed. They wanted somebody to do 5 days a week, covering, I think it was a director's role. So I left the comfy 2 days a week job, took on another 5 days a week job. I started commuting again. And I think that's about it. I'm still working, of course. I'm still a consultant QP. I've got 4 contracts, I believe. Life's interesting. I quite enjoy it. The coronavirus and the lockdown has been a positive thing for me, because I don't travel. I'm not having to do the commute. I'm sure it'll come again, but at the moment, I'm enjoying working from home. Talk to you soon. It's Paul Palmer. Thanks. Bye-bye.